everyone, Neen here from the Hyperactive Bookworm. I'm here to talk to the amazing KJ about her latest book, The Forever and the Now. Hey KJ.
Hi, how are you going?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here. And we will be talking and asking a few questions about The Forever and the Now and random other things that come up.
That's cool.
For anyone who hasn't heard of KJ before, are you under a rock? And secondly, if you haven't read this, oh my gosh, go read it. I will try not to give too many spoilers today, but I can't promise anything. We'll see how we go.
I'll try and edit myself because I get excited about this book. It's a special one.
It is.
I will ramble a little bit about it.
Please, that's why we're here. That's what we want. We want to hear all about your process with this, and I can't wait. So let's get into it. Now, the first question that I believe you may have had a little bit of a conniption over is, can you describe The Forever and the Now in 3 words?
I sent back something in capitals at you. I could, that's impossible. But anyway, I said, fraught, which I think is an underused word. We should use the word fraught a lot. Love, obviously, and forever, obviously. So I mean that's the 3 words that I could think of. Love and forever, obviously. But yeah, fraught. It's a great word. It's not angst, because that can, I think that's word it's overused a little bit. But the idea of fraught means to fracture slightly, to be pulled and poked and prodded and made to sort of reflect. So I thought that was a good word.
I think that's a perfect word for this book, because the amount of discussions I've had about this book, about being broken and cracked and fractured and pulled apart, more than anything, I think I've discussed with this book. So they are really good words for that. I'm glad I've given you the time to think about them.
I did. Thank you for that. I would have just sat here like some sort of, mute person, sort of looking at you blankly.
And where did the idea come from, and why did you specifically choose to make it a non-romance?
Well, I've done something different every single book, so I don't know. I just wanted to do a love story without a happy ever after. I wanted to see if that could be done. I knew it, obviously, logically it had been done because people had done it, but I wanted to know if I could do it. I want to do something with reality. Again, I've written reality before. All my books have even Art of Magic was real, despite the fact that
magic realism.
Magic, yeah. Marika could do what they, and cats could do what they did. But I mean, all my characters are real, all my stories are real. But I just wanted to do this one to show what the ick of real life and the stuff like that, where you have to go through some ick sometimes to find that love, to find that forever. So I wanted to see if that could be done. Because I like to write characters that are real. I really think that's one of the things that I do, is write these characters, or write any characters that you really could sit down with a cup of coffee with, or you could hang out with, or I mean even Felicity and Tal, you could sort of admire from a distance. I mean, you can see yourself hanging out with these people, and I wanted to make sure that I used real people still, but put them in a really a fractured, fraught situation to see if that was actually something that I could write. Where did it come from? I don't know. It just appeared in my head, but I think it was from I asked a question to myself, why, I don't know, but I think you do when you're in a relationship. What would it be like if your person suddenly left, for not just because they wanted to pick up and move to Perth, but because they died or something happened? What would it feel like? What would it be like? What would it look like to other people? And so I wanted to investigate that, and then it turned into a book. I was just going to write a little thing like I do, like a little essay thingy, but it didn't. It turned into 86,000 words. So and we're going through COVID, and all these people were losing all their forever people, and I just felt that, and so I wanted to write something that didn't just be an essay, a non-fiction essay about how awful that was, but a piece of fiction that talked about love, even though it doesn't have a happy ever after.
No, but my God, it pulls at all of it. You feel everything that Bron feels, and I absolutely adore it. And it's broken and it's wonderful, and it's one of those books that I have read many times, people, already, and it's only been out a few months, and it's highlighted to buggery, and I expect I just lost the word. The spine will crack very soon, because there's only so many times you can bend it back like this before it gives up the ghost. But yes, your characters are so fantastic and real and wonderful. And okay, sure, Tal and Felicity, you may want to have coffee with, but at another table where you can just surreptitiously watch them. But in this book, every single character is so well-rounded and fleshed out. They're not just the cardboard cutout of, you know, the mother-in-law or anything like that. Even the minor characters, there's these little things that make you realize that they have lives away from the scene. And I think you do a marvelous job at that.
Thank you.
Bron, the main character, I absolutely love Bron. Inside her head cracks me up constantly. I laughed so many times. I may have spat coffee many times and sworn just as much as her and Siobhan do. But who is your favorite character in this book?
They live in my head for so long that I think I love them for different reasons. I mean, I love them all. I mean, even characters that don't appear a lot, like Paul, Siobhan's partner.
Yep.
I wrote a scene where he stands up to everybody and defends Kate in his way. And I love that. I love the fact that I was able to just write that. I mean, I love Kate because she's got sexy humor and she's got a sense of fun. And I love Bron because she's humorous. And I love JJ because she's cheeky and trying to work out who she is in that cheekiness and doing it on purpose, and to rile up her parents, and yet she's so wise, and she's such a good foil to, you know, Bron and all these people who need to have that type of wisdom aimed at them for them to have a little moment of epiphany. So yeah, there's lots of characters. I mean, even Neil was good to write. Neil was appalling, and yet I had fun writing him because he's not a caricature of an awful person. He's got there's a scene where he and Bron have this stand-up argument in the middle of a footpath in the main street of Melbourne, and she leaves and then looks back at him, and I even give him some type of humanity because he looks lost, despite the fact of how awful he is. And I wanted to show that because he doesn't understand what it is that he doesn't have that Bron does. It still doesn't occur to him what it is, but so he finds that quite challenging, and I wanted to show that. So yeah, all my characters.
Oh, I love that. And Siobhan is just fabulous. The sibling, oh my God, the family dynamics in this book made me laugh and almost cry at how realistic and that love-hate sort of balance of family. It was the intervention scene will, I think, forever remain my favorite scene because it is so raw and real, and it's so balanced with these little things in there that you kind of laugh and sniffle at the same time. And it was just amazing.
Well, I had to write it like that because that's what families are like. They're not perfect. I mean, despite the fact that Bron's family are great, they're not perfect. I mean,
Oh,
Siobhan
God.
and Bron are very close. And I needed to show that for some reason. Janine is, you know, the middle child, and but she sees a lot, and every now and then has a little chat to Bron and sort of, you know, whacks her over the head and says, "Hey." But yeah, Siobhan and Bron, despite differences, are incredibly close. And so when the intervention scene was written, I had the mum, I had Michelle, and I had Janine more involved. And it ended up being just too many voices there's too much noise. So I had to let the loudest voices be heard, and that's obviously Siobhan. But Bron's a loud voice, and because she had to defend herself. So what I made sure of was that the mum, Michelle, and Janine ended up bookending the argument. So I made sure that I separated those two characters, and Janine went off and baked anxiety muffins, and I had her doing her thing, and then popping in and out, and then just leaving it alone. And she went bonkers every now and then sort of moved away. And then the mum didn't say much, but she stayed down the other end. So they ended up being sort of a bookend. And so it tightened the sort of circle around the argument. So you ended up with a quite pressure cooker. It would really, you couldn't have any parts, you know, leaking. There was this pressure cooker between Siobhan and Bron, and they really hashed it out. So that was what I was going for, placement of characters as well as the tension between the two.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly balanced, and the way you use the kitchen and the setting and the placement of them, it's such an intensely real scene. Like I could imagine my own family doing something along these lines, and the reality of it just building. What was actually the hardest scene for you to write, though?
That one. Because I don't have a scene. I don't have a family that is in any way like that. I have a very disconnected family that I really don't have anything to do with. So it was tricky to write something that I don't have any experience in. I mean, not that I write with research all the time. So I had to weird research, actually. So I had to watch a lot of dramas, bits of dramas on YouTube on how a family actually functions or not functions. So I had to do all this, and it was quite heartbreaking to watch these bits and pieces of how families are shown on TV, but how families are organized. And that's why in that scene, I don't know if it's a spoiler, but that's why in that scene towards the end, when it instantly the tension is released, because everyone said what they have to say, and Siobhan walks past, and Bron reaches out to touch her, and she sort of twitches away and says, "Don't touch me, I'm still mad at you." And I wanted to maintain, there's obviously little elements, little bits of it still that we're holding on. And when they make the tea, and you know, Siobhan says, "I hate you," and then Bron says, "I hate you too," and then they hug, and that I wanted to be really powerful. And that's one apparently makes people cry. That little little moment is when I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, and I love you. And it's sort of dichotomy between the two emotions. So it was a hard one to write. I mean, obviously the last chapter was, I sobbed all the way through it. I had to, that was so hard. I had to go back. I wrote that in bits. I couldn't write that in a linear way, which I normally do. I had to write that in chunks, and then really make sure that they work together. And yet it does work in chunks, because grief is about moments of clarity, and the rest of it's just black. And that part I knew a little bit about, but again, I still had to research it and how people would feel about grief. And everyone had said that it is in pieces. So I wrote that in pieces, actual pieces, and then I put them together. So that was hard. I leaked all over my keyboard with that one. Normally I can write a chapter in about 2 weeks, but I took ages to write that chapter, and I wrote that bits and pieces of that while writing other chapters, and I never do that.
Wow. No, I can understand why you wouldn't be able to rewrite that scene in one go, because the power in it was just overwhelming. And I am still just sitting here blown away by the fact that like that intervention scene was so powerful and real, and yet you've not had personal experience on that, because I would never have guessed that. So kudos, because that was written so absolutely perfectly. Like it was like a window into so many families.
Well, that's how I write. I write with as a video. All of my novels, I see them as films. So I was able to, once I'd sort of seen enough, I was able to then visualize how I thought that, and the furniture and everything else was in my head, and it's all a film. So I was able to then write that, and the dialogue's not a problem for me. I've always been able to write dialogue. And so I literally just put myself into Siobhan's head and that was tricky because I had to make sure that I didn't head hop, and I had to make sure it was coming from Bron's point of view the whole time, which I did work hard on, and worked. So we got the absolute incandescent rage from Siobhan and Bron was copying it, but we were there with her holding on to the back of the chair with her knuckles white, and this rage that she's got towards her sister. So I was able to see that now. Once I had it in my head, I didn't have a picture in my head, but then I did, and then I was able to write it.
It was amazing. I still, like, the amount of times I flicked back to that scene, just like the raw power and the raw emotion is just phenomenal. And you did do amazing. What made you decide to just do the one point of view?
I did start with 2 points of view, and I thought it just didn't work. It was appalling. It just did, because despite the fact that Kate goes through a journey, and it's such a painful journey, Bron goes through a bigger arc. And so I thought, I need to write with one person. So I went back and I started again. And it's Bron. It's Bron who has to go from the balance of the stillness in her head and the stillness at the beginning of the chapter to the stillness at the end, despite the fact that it's a different reason for the stillness. And that's the balance. And so Bron had to go through all of that. And I had to make sure, this is the thing, I had to make sure that Kate was such a real person from Bron's point of view. If I had have written it from Kate's point of view as well, then Kate would have been a real person, because you do that when you're writing in someone's head. But I had to write Kate so real from Bron's point of view, and otherwise she'd be a cardboard cutout. And so that was, I like to think, I feel really proud of that fact that Kate is so real, such a real person, and yet we've only ever had Bron's point of view of that. But it was important to write from Bron's point of view, because she has to go through just as much of the journey that Kate goes on with the coming out and all the things that Kate goes through. Bron goes through it with her. And we needed to have Bron's point of view, because she's the one who had to learn about pain.
Yes, and stop being the Teflon queen, which I love that expression so much. It just suits so well for this character. And I do love, the book is very cyclical, like the balance is there, like the things at the start manifest again at the end, and not the same things, but the similar aspects in them. Every time I read about the bench throughout the whole thing, I still, it's okay. And that, to me, that's just such a beautiful example of how you do tie up and bookend everything, so that it's such a balanced and well-rounded story.
That's why Jack takes Bron to the bench outside the hospital. And that's on purpose, because it becomes a place of stillness, and Jack, like Paul, have these moments of incredible importance, and so Paul does with Kate, gets very stressed when the family starts to push, and Jack is the one who lifts up Bron emotionally, and physically slightly, and takes her over there, and they just sit, and then Jack says, I don't have many words, and Bron says, well, I don't have many words either, and they just sit, And that's all, and that's what Bron used to do, is just sit.
Just sit. And it's just it's this whole journey, and it's what she goes through and everything. And I love that she can be there and sit again, but still having come through all this journey and still be her, but have learned so much from it all. It's she does. It's just absolutely amazing. So what does a writing day for KJ look like?
Look, I can't even give you one answer for that, because there isn't an answer for that. I don't, my brain won't let me actually have a schedule. So I write when I can. I write if I have a 3-hour writing day, then I'm thrilled with that. If I have a 10-minute writing day and I get 100 words written, well, then I do. I write to keep my head sort of organized, and I'm supposed to write in an interesting way, where a lot of writers talk, write little scenes and then they add them together. And the only time I've ever done that was in the end chapter of The Forever and the Now, only because it was just so painful to write. But I just but I can't write like that. I have to write in a linear way. I write chapter 1, then off I go, only because I don't plan. I don't plan. And the one I'm writing at the moment, oh no, Ignis is the only one that I had to plan, because you do when you're gonna incinerate someone. So I don't plan, and it just appears. And so with this one, I knew where it was going to end, and I knew I had to get there, and I knew I had sort of these markers. I actually had them. I knew they were going to separate. That was actually from the very beginning. I knew that was going to happen. So I had to get them to that point with a reason. And I knew it had to be Kate again, because Kate was the one who was going through all of these life points, and Bron was just there, experiencing them with Kate. So
learning that she's so oblivious sometimes. Just like, she had to really come to realize that she really floated along, and had to see that there was actually other stuff going on. It was
well, that's why Lydia was important, because there's a scene where she rings Bron rings Lydia from the car and that sort of stuff. She's sitting in the car park, and Lydia calls her on it and says, "Don't do that. I'm not your second choice, just because you can't talk to Kate because you're not allowed to." So she really called. So the people were calling Bron on stuff. And even JJ at the party, at her birthday party, called Bron on it in JJ's way, called Bron on it and said, "Don't stuff this up." So everybody was actually saying to her, "You know what? You're not going to get away with this one. You clearly are in love with this person. It's ridiculous. You've got the whole hearts hanging around your head. Do something about it." And so I really made sure that Bron copped it from all sides.
she really did.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, you kind of like, I totally get it. She needed to have that wake up, but I felt bad for her. I'm like, she's just so oblivious, and then she's just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But that realization when she kind of wakes up, there's so much beauty in it, like this realization and this discovering and putting Kate, learning that Kate is this well-rounded person, this full person who's, not some perfect, equivalent and stuff. It's just so wonderful and powerful. And Bron's internal dialogue is just the best thing I've ever heard in my life. It's absolutely fabulous.
She had to be, that's why another reason why I wrote it from Bron's point of view, because this story could have been a medical manual otherwise, and I didn't want it to be anything other than, you know, there's no way like it could be that. So it had to be from Bron's point of view, because Kate was going through all this sort of stuff, but Kate's also quite analytical, and yes, she's sexy humor is there, and you get that from the very beginning, and it's delightful, and you can see why Bron's infatuated. But yeah, I had visions of who Kate. Anyway, I won't get into that.
Go for it.
My celebrities who Kate was, and I had sort of visions of these older women who were with the long, sort of really dark brown hair, and sort of quite curvaceous. And I thought, oh, this is Kate. I can see this. But yeah, she was so analytical, being an accountant and stuff. And I thought, I can't have her being a voice in this. I need Bron to be the voice, because Bron will talk about things like angry octopus, brain octopus, and stuff like this. She will say stuff like that, not only to define what is happening, but to protect herself. And she needed to do that, but therefore protecting us. The book is incredibly sad, and I have had a number of people yell at me for making them sob. I
may have been one of them.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, but it could have been so ridiculous. So there's no human counterpart. Then it wouldn't have been fun. It wouldn't have been sad. It had to be. It was going to be sad because of the fact that there was humor. Humor humor creates sadness.
The balance actually makes it more powerful. And the way you help the readers laugh and breathe in between all these oh fuck moments is it helps make it so much more impactful and so much more powerful. And I have to ask, are you personally an Emma Thompson fan as well? Because I cheered when you mentioned Emma Thompson, and it was so perfectly done.
I had to, I wanted something classy, first of all. And that's actually what Bron says, that she has to do something classy because it's a classy event. So she calls that Emma Thompson. And I tried to think of somebody who, I mean, Emma Thompson is sometimes really quite crass and hilarious, but she's also quite, I mean, I had actually Helena Bonham Carter as my first choice.
Oh no.
But she was, I know, and it didn't work. I tried it and it didn't work, did it?
No.
So I've got Emma Thompson, and Bron comes out with a couple of sentences where it's so Emma Thompson, so classy, it's so British almost. And so she comes out with that, and you are deeply awful, or something that she says, and take a long walk off a very short pier. And then, hey, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, when Neil says, "Oh, I don't give a flying fuck," and she goes, "Oh, you got that one? Yeah. Oh, okay. The fucks are flying. Okie dokie. I'll just call on Siobhan." So I wanted it to be fun and yet a smackdown of epic proportions.
It was
and she
brilliant.
Yeah, it was fun to write.
Because that's one of my ultimate favorite quotes. And okay, the fucks were flying. Goodbye, Emma. Time to channel Siobhan. I laughed so hard, and I still laugh at that line because it so perfectly sums up this whole scene. It's perfect. So and I'm a huge Emma Thompson fan. So, anyone mentioning Emma Thompson in a fabulous way is like, kudos, brilliant.
Well, that's the one. That's an example again of this incredibly tense scene. I mean, Kate's literally disintegrating in tension, and shaking violently, and Bron's defending, and could again be really, really serious, and yet there's that serious, deflect with humor. Serious, deflect with humor. And I was someone mentioned the fact that it could actually have been a Sam Markson template from Coming Home, but there's no way that Bron is. Yes, there's self-deprecating humor, but it pushes the boundary. Sam Markson she's fairy floss, candy floss.
Yeah,
she's so sweet and lovely. Bron, yes, she's Teflon, but she's also going to have a couple of moments of pushing the boundary a little bit.
Yep, using Neil's arm for the flag. Spot on. Yeah. she is Teflon, but you know, the minute you try to actually throw anything at her, she will push back. And that's what I love about her. She has that balance of chilled, no worries, life is cruisy, easy, but you mess with me and I'll mess straight back with you. And that balance within her is really amazing. So I absolutely love that. Now, you've written in so many subgenres now, which I love. I haven't quite gotten through all your books, but I am getting there. The ones I have gotten through are just fabulous. But so yeah, you've written in all these other subgenres. What are you planning on next, if you can tell us?
I can tell you. I've just prefaced that with the reason I'm doing that. Romance. They're all got sort of different, and then I've got psychological thriller with lots of sex with Ignis, and then I've got all the romances have a message in them that's all different. So you get all that, and then you get this one which is not a romance. So you've got I did that on purpose. I made a commitment. I think, I don't know, it was almost subconscious, that I was never going to write the same thing twice. That will happen eventually because I'll run out of subgenres. So anyway, but yeah, this one, okay, the one I'm writing at the moment that I'm trying to work through, and it's been tricky, but anyway, I'm working on it, is a romantic fantasy, fantasy light. I mean, goodness, it's I'm world building to the point where it's a little bit different. So anyway, it's a fantasy light romance. It's fluffy and it's cute and it's delightful, and of course it's me, so there's a sub message of importance with refugees and stuff like this, and the idea of trespassing and being a refugee. But it's portals, and there's leather, and there's swords. So yay, and there's quite buff people, and and it's there's again a message of stolen identity and finding out who you are and blah blah blah. But yeah, so it's good.
Is it sort of set in this world, in a parallel world? Is it like when you say, sorry?
No, that's right. No. The first chapter is she's a metal worker, and that's when she creates art, and she goes and sells it at markets and things. But it's quite amazing, this art. And anyway, so she it turns out that she's had her identity stolen, and so she starts to get hassled by people, and including this illegal gambling den that sends the thugs because someone has used her name to go and get credit at this illegal gambling. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so she runs away from this van that's tailing her, and they start to run. So she runs into a laundromat because she just thinks, I don't know what to do, I'll just use the back door. Anyway, so she runs and says, oh, look, I need to use the back door, and blah, 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 blah. And so she falls through the back door of a laundromat into another world. As you do.
Okay, cool. So, parallel. Well,
yeah, and then the whole story continues in that world. And
so, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so she realizes that that's where portals exist, is in the back of laundromats. So so yeah,
that explains the one sock thing.
It does. That's where it goes. And so yeah, that's what I'm doing. It's light. It's funny. It's oh gosh, it's just such a I had to do something that was different from the Forever and the Now. I really did. I had to come back to being completely irreverent. We've got the bit of sass in this character who falls through the portal. We've got this quite formal warrior woman who is the one who finds this sort of this woman who's just fallen through the laundromat hole. So she's and there's some sort of enemies to lovers bit going on there. So it's full of tropes. It's lovely.
I love it.
It's silly and it's great.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. I'm such a fan of speculative fiction. So yay. I love that type of stuff. That is so cool.
Yep. And there's swords.
Oh, hello. You've
exactly.
Got to have swords.
Swords. I know. And she's a metalsmith. So you know what? You can see what's going to happen. That's cool. I use you as inspiration.
I always have swords everywhere, all over my desk. So yeah, you've totally got, this is an awesome sword pen.
Yep.
So yep, I'm all for it. Bring on the swords.
I've had to research swords. It's been quite amazing, actually.
Yeah.
And I've got this, I found this sword that's got a Celtic knot at the end of it.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
it's so cool. So yeah, I'm using that as her sword and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I love that kind of research. That's so fun. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Do you have a title or anything yet, or is that way down the track? You don't have to commit to anything. It's all good.
No, I can tell you a title. It might, you know how when in metal work you cast
Yes.
metal to create things, and she's a trespasser, so I thought I'd call it Outcast.
Oh, nice.
So
that's
where I'm
cool.
going. So she's because she's illegal, and this is where we're going to talk about refugees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you know, the idea of hierarchy in society and blah blah blah. Anyway, it's I haven't worked out. Again, I'm writing this thing with having no idea what's going to happen. But
I love
it's
that.
going to be fun.
I love that. It's so cool how different authors come to it, and I love that you are just so 100% a discovery writer. It's so exciting. I think that's wonderful. Have you read any books recently that you could recommend?
So many. Look, I read just as much as I write. I think that's something about me that I do. I like to do that, but I also like to support other writers in the community. I will write an essay thingy if I like the book a lot. It's just rambling. It's just in my head. It literally is a whole bunch of rambling. It seems to connect. So I've read Chasing Dreams, A.L. Brooks's one, which was lovely. It was delightful.
That's wonderful. Just a hint out here for anyone from the Sapphic Book Club. That's next month's book.
Oh, there you go.
Yay.
Cool. So hi, Angela from the future. And and the other one was A Whisper of Solace, which is
that's on my list. I'm getting there. I can't wait to read it. Oh,
so it's astonishing. It's dense and delicious, and it requires an immersion into the book that you can't just read that flicking through it. You'll miss too much. Every single page has something in it that is so important that if you miss it, then the other stuff doesn't make sense.
So Melina's going to get very upset when I highlight that book as well.
I think Melina's going to be fine with that one. It's all good. I think she's really pleased that people love it, and I think she should be pleased. It's a super duper book. I mean, I love all her writing. All three of her novels. I've thrown words on pages that 800 words here and 1,000 words there, and then sent them to Goodreads. It's exploded, and because it's too long. So I don't know. I just love them. I think they're awesome. I think she's an astonishing writer. And there's so many writers out there. I'd be perfectly happy not to write stuff and just read if my brain allowed me to, but my brain doesn't have to write, so I have to write. But I would be perfectly happy just to read I love everybody's work. So yeah, I'm not so much a massive supporter because I want to be supportive. It just happens that it is that way. I just like to read.
Yep. And I think as a writer, one of the most important things is to read. You learn so much about the craft by reading, and reading all different works, reading all different authors. And I love within this community how supportive the authors are, and not because they want to be supported, but because they are first and foremost readers. And
that's a side effect, isn't it? That the support comes out. I mean, I just, when I read other writers' works, and there's always something that their strength, and I always look at that and think, oh my gosh, that's such a cool strength that they've got. I love that. I love, I mean, Melina's word choice, for example. Oh, the fact that it's the perfect word.
Yeah.
And there could have been no other word that she could have chosen. It was the perfect word. And I don't know how much she agonizes over her word choice, but it's the perfect word. And you got someone like Cheyenne Blue, who the landscape is a character.
Yes.
It's the most beautiful description of landscape that you can read. And again, Angela A.L. Brooks, it's about flow. Her flow is just lovely. There's just all these different writers, and I just love all the different strengths that I look for it, and you can find it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. What's your favorite piece of advice, or a piece of advice you would give to aspiring authors?
Right, just that sounds so twee and patronizing, but just write. I mean, I didn't write fan fiction. I didn't write anything. I just I wrote a tiny little novella. It's not even the 2 L's in novella, it's so little. I wrote that in 2016, I think, and it's purely for my wife. And I published it because I published it so I could get a copy, so I could actually get a copy sent to me and to her. It is literally a retelling, a fictionalization of our meeting and our together. So yeah, that's home. So I wrote that and I went, oh, okay. So yeah, I published it simply to get a copy. And then I thought, that wasn't awful. I might be able to do this. So then when my brain exploded and I resigned and I became this sort of at-home person, I wrote Learning to Swim, which is awful, but not awful. And so people like it. And so I thought, oh, I'll keep, doing that. And so that's my advice, is just to keep doing it, even though you think it might suck. It probably doesn't. I mean, my advice to students that I teach about writing and teenagers and adults is to write your shopping list and then put it in alphabetical order, and you've got a poem. And you have. Do it.
Fantastic.
See what happens. Yeah, if you do it, if you write your shopping list out and you've got all the sort of, everyone writes milk first, and then you write all your things out and then alphabetize it, you end up with a poem. And if you stick some sort of, E. Cummings versions of no apostrophes and, no full stops and things like that, and you capitalize randomly and all that sort of thing, you actually end up with a poem. Well, there you go, you're on your way. Okay, so now put that into the beginning paragraph of a book, write down the first 3 things that you have to buy and have your character go and buy them and have something happen at the general store. And then so you build it up. And that's what I recommend. Yeah, it's cool.
That is so fantastic.
Yep, it works. And then at the general store, you leave one of the things on the counter, so you have to go back, and then you've discovered that something has happened to the counter clerk. So like their shirt has changed color, and you wonder why. So then you've gone into your access through that doorway has changed the reality. So it's the same, but it's the different reality. And so every time you go in and out of that door buying a piece of off that shopping list, you change realities, and you have to leave something behind to go and get it. So there you go. You've got yourself a story.
That is just the coolest writing. Like,
yep.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, so that's what I recommend. So I mean, also find your strength. I mean, I reckon, and this is not being vain or awful, and because I try not to be, but it's I reckon my characters and my dialogue are my strength.
Absolutely.
That's my thing, I reckon.
Absolutely.
So because I write dialogue first. I wrote some of the conversation between Siobhan and Bron. I like the scene where they ask Bron and Kate to look after Fruit Loop. Yep. I wrote that ages before it actually happened. So I write dialogue first. Yeah. So it was even before I knew that they had a poodle. But I didn't even know what creature Fruit Loop was. I just know that they needed Bron and Kate to look after it. This thing, because then it would be lost, this thing, and therefore they'd have to find it, and that would be a little fracture in their relationship. Anyway, bread at the counter sort of moment. Anyway, but I think find your thing. Find what it is that you're actually good at, and then write a whole lot of stuff in that strength. Because if you try and write in not your strength, then you become quite demoralized. Because when I write things where I have to write some type of piece of prose that has no dialogue and it's just a description to the thing. That's really hard for me. That first paragraph in The Forever and the Now took me ages, because it's just description. And I had to make sure, and so I had to put something odd in there to make it work in my head, which is why Ron contemplates how much she'd have to spend time there to drown. And it was so out of the blue, but I had to do that to make that paragraph work. Otherwise, it was just not. I'd ramble, and it would be awful. And you don't start a novel like that, It's just, and yeah, it was really hard.
That's awesome. I love that. They are just, you get a lot of advice and stuff, but I love that. I have to try that. That is just
it works.
Brilliant.
And it works for teenagers. And I don't say that to adults to simply sort of patronize. I say that because it's a technique that works. Write a shopping list, advertise it, off you go. Take the 3, buy the first 3.
Wow. Man, now I'm sitting here going, yeah, what can I put on this list? Thank you so much. And so anyone watching, this is the book we have just been discussing. It is wonderful and powerful and fantastic, and you will laugh and you will cry and sob your eyes out and, catch all those tears and make rum out of it, because there will be enough. Thank you so much, KJ. And where can people find you to find all about this and all your other amazing books?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Property of KJ all the time. It's procrastinating, and I'm on Facebook all the time at KJ Lesvik, and Instagram not on all the time. I don't understand Instagram. It's like a photo album for me.
Yeah.
And which it seems to be. And then I'm on TikTok at KJ Lesvik, which is it's a whole other universe. Tell you what, talk about alternative universe. That page, you go onto TikTok, and then it launches into a page.
Yeah.
That you didn't ask for.
No.
And has things on it that you don't really think you want to look at. And so I have to make sure, I have a 12-year-old, I have to make sure that if I need to open TikTok, I don't open it anywhere near him, because the first thing that you have on TikTok is some woman in a bikini bungee jumping and losing her top or something. Like it's something odd. And that's not an algorithm that I actually know. So I have to quickly press things to get off that page. Anyway, whatever. So TikTok is odd, and so
I'll make sure that I put the links down for all the places where you can find KJ, because
I'm on Amazon, but if you type in just KJ, you get JK Rowling. So
please no.
So type in The Forever and the Now, or type in Ignis or Art of Magic, because there's no which drives people bonkers. So The Art of Magic. So just type in Art of Magic and you'll find me. And then there's like an author activating hyperlink thingy, and then click on that, and then off you go to my homepage, and then you can find everything.
That's fantastic. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and
thank you. It was fun.
I cannot wait for Outcast.
That's a working title.
The working title Outcast.
Yeah. I like the sound of it though. It sounds good when someone else says it. Yeah. Say it again, Neen. Say it at the working title.
The working title Outcast.
Yeah, see, look, I like the sound of that. I might go with it just forever now.
Until someone says, ew, no.
Yeah. No, Neen has decreed it. It's going to be called Outcast, therefore I will call it Outcast.
Oh dear, I'm gonna get slammed. No, it does. It sounds really good, and it seems to work with what you've told us about the story. So I cannot wait.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, lovely. Yep.
Thanks everyone, and thanks KJ. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye.